Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I'd like to thank you once again for the opportunity to move the motion and conclude at this point. My sincere thanks to the many members who rose to share their views and insights pertaining to the motion and the amended motions. It's not important whether members agree with the points I raised. What's important is that there's been active discussion and thought. Where we can persuade each other, that's great. Where we can't, let's agree to disagree. This, after all, is the democratic process. What's important is for us to feel free, empowered to express our points of view without fear or favor in the best interest of our country. I do not intend to respond to all the points made by the members. I'll keep it brief as advised by my good friend, Mr. Sam Tan, yesterday. Minister of State, Madam Yu Foo-yee-shun, in an inimitable, non-confrontational and persuasive style, reassured the House that no one will go hungry or be left behind as Singapore progresses. Thank you, Madam Yu Foo, especially for taking pains to highlight the constellation of help available for the needy. This is indeed comforting, but my suggestion to Madam Yu Foo as well as the Ministry is that it would be most useful to publicize some of these benefits a lot more, not just to the beneficiaries, but to people like me who obviously are not aware of them, because it does inspire confidence, much needed confidence. Parliamentary Secretary Mr. Sam Tan most eloquently fired a series of salvos at me, adding much color to my speech in the process. There appears to be some misconceptions. Perhaps I wasn't clear in my speech. For example, I didn't say categorically that the democratic process is flouted by government. I said there's a perception that it's not a level playing field on the ground. I didn't say economic progress is less important. I merely said the deeper, longer-term challenges for us are issues of rootedness, commitment, and happiness. What I stated in my speech are my honest sense of the perceptions and sentiments on the ground based on my interactions, both formal and informal. We can debate whether this is accurate, whether this is true or false, but the best way to ascertain the sense of the ground is by doing a qualitative independent survey, which perhaps the government can consider doing. Mr. Sam Tan, all the same, the many points of disagreement notwithstanding, I'm pleased, has accepted one of my suggestions. It seems to have passed his stringent test that the vernacular TV channels should carry more content on each other's culture and happenings. Mr. Zainuddin Nordin, I'm glad that the member agrees that racial and religious harmony is a journey and not to be taken for granted, even though we have put in place good structures and learnt important lessons from the 1964 riots. I have no issue with the amendment the member proposed to my motion, essentially because in my speech I did take pains to acknowledge the progress that Singapore has made in the 50 years since it attained self-government in 1959, in nation building and achieving the tenets as enshrined in the National Pledge. The key words for me in my original wording of the pledge of the motion are reaffirm our commitment to the key tenets as enshrined in the National Pledge. I'm glad that the member acknowledges that we can do better, which is my key argument. So we are in agreement in essence. Minister Dr. Ng Eng Hen gave what I consider a thought-provoking speech. And the manner in which and the tone you adopted is something that is highly appreciated. Not only is it thought-provoking, it is also delivered with dignity and therefore a lot more persuasive. You said power and resonance comes when actions match words. I couldn't have put it better. I couldn't agree more, which is why in my speech I not only acknowledged the positive actions of this government and the people in getting here. What I've recommended are also, I believe, specific actions to help us move towards the aspirations as enshrined in the pledge. I'm heartened that the Minister does see economic goals and our aspirations as not being mutually exclusive. That's precisely what I'm asking for. To move towards, to pay even more attention to the tenets of the pledge when striving for economic progress. I never saw the two as mutually exclusive. I agree that we should not implement change for the sake of change, and especially if we know it's going to cause undue distress on the ground. But when I called for repoliticization of our people, for example, I did not envisage a situation where there are riots or rallies at every corner on every subject. Even if we wanted this, I'm afraid it's an unlikely scenario because of our current political culture. What I really asked for is about getting people to get more interested, more connected with what's happening politically, because I do sincerely believe that this is going to help Singapore as we move forward. My final comment is on the contribution made by Minister Mentor Lee just now.